in 2003. I'm living in Phoenix, Arizona, and it seems like a really good idea to buy a house. I'm making $23,000 a year, and I'm in a homeowners association class to buy a house, and I've got my eyes set on a $250,000 house. Oh, and y'all, it is such a good idea. My friends are all buying houses, and their houses are going up 20% a year, and then they're able to use the equity in their home as like an ATM machine. And it's actually really convenient. So mortgage brokers would like meet you at your car and be like, "Do you want a house?" I mean, that's all I knew. I was just right out of college. So anyway, everybody wanted me to buy a house except for my dad. He was like, "You can't buy a house. You don't make enough money. You especially can't buy a $250,000 house." So I didn't buy the house. Plans changed. 2 years later, I handed in my apartment keys for my $300 shared apartment with 2 girlfriends, and I skipped my way to the Harvard Kennedy School to attend my dream university and go into public policy. Okay. So the first person I meet is a really kind person in the financial aid office. And I'm saying kind because she said I could have as many student loans as I wanted. And the thing is, what was really cool about it is she really understood human behavior because she said, "You can always return what you don't use." All right. So I'm sitting here in the audience of my graduation, and David Gergen is giving a speech for the graduation, and he is saying, "You know what? I am sick and tired of you all dreaming of changing the world, and then all you do is you go out and get a job, and you live to your last dollar." This is the first time I had ever heard of the golden handcuffs. And so I'm sitting here going, I've been working since I was 12, and it turns out that every single dollar I've ever made or borrowed in student loans happened to be exactly how much money I needed. Now, that's either a major life coincidence, or I am headed to exactly where he is telling me I'm going. So I spent the last $2,000 in my student loans to buy a beat-up old Acura. I got myself a $500 apartment, and I committed to not spending everything I made. Now, to be clear, that I didn't commit to saving. I just committed to not spending everything that I made. So I'm starting this job. I'm a stock analyst. And so when you're a stock analyst, you basically take a company's P&L, you project it out a couple of years, and then you figure out what the stock prices were so you could tell someone to buy, sell, or hold. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. I have income, I have expenses, and because I don't spend everything I make, I have net income. So I made myself my own P&L, which I later learned is called budgeting. Okay. So I've got money for the first time in my life. And I'm like, this is interesting. Now, I want you all to think about actually what I was doing in my life. I was a stock analyst, and it was super fun to be a stock analyst in 2007. But then I was a stock analyst also in 2008. So the stock market is plummeting, and there is something else more personal happening. All of my friends back home and people I knew are having the most devastating thing happen in their lives. They're not worried about their stock portfolios going down. They're worried because they cannot afford their mortgage because they lost their jobs. And those mortgages and those housing prices are going down a lot, and they're just having to turn in the keys and walk away. So this led me to ask a question that I spent the next 4 years trying to get an answer to. How do people get financial advice? Because at this point in my life, if I had taken a quiz, what influenced the ability for me to have the wealth that I had at this moment? Check all that apply. The housing broker, mortgage brokers walking around, the federal government giving me as many student loans as I wanted, my dad, or David Gergen. Yes, my dad and David Gergen were the only 2 people at this point who had been an influence in my life to build wealth. And so this is where we have to know the fundamental difference between those 2 groups. On one side, we have a group where if you take the advice that they're giving, they make money. If you don't take the advice that they're giving, they don't make money. The other group of people, they basically have no financial skin in the game. They're simply giving advice. And so I set out on a path to understand what the different ways that people give financial advice is, because why couldn't we stop all these people from buying unaffordable homes? And as I looked into it, it turns out that the majority, over 90% of the advisors out there, make money if you buy what they're selling. And they don't make money if you don't buy what they're selling. This is the moment we all need to be shocked, because this is a massive conflict of interest, right? Okay, so let's understand exactly what we're talking about here. So there's 3 different types of advisors out there that dominate the industry. The broker-dealers are the first ones. And these are people that if you buy what they're selling, they make money. If you don't buy what they're selling, they don't make money. So it's a super big coincidence that most of the people that walk into their office need to do what? They need to buy what they're selling. And so they could be selling annuities, they could be selling whole life policies, they could be selling stocks or bonds, but they have a huge incentive for you to buy whatever it is that they happen to be able to sell. Now, a lot of people think, well, this is just a win-win. Okay, so yes, it is an absolute win for the person selling the product. Let me tell you what a big win this is. So on a whole life insurance policy, for instance, you might pay a premium of, $300 a month, $1,000 a month. I can't do math in my head, but tell me what 30% to 90% of those premiums would be in a year, because that is what the commissioned life insurance agent or broker is going to be making that first year. As long as you hold the policy, they're going to continue making money on it, about 10% a year. So do you think they want you to buy that policy? Okay, yes, they want you to buy that policy. And so I remember meeting this woman when I was doing this research, and I was trying to understand, what's the appeal here? And so she had bought this life insurance on herself and on her kids. And when she was thinking about it, she was excited about the cash value. So basically, she can borrow from this policy and use it for flexible things like home repairs or kids' college or whatever. You can borrow from it in retirement. All right, so then I asked her, so what is this policy going to do for you in retirement? Are you going to be able to retire one day? And she kind of looked at me funny, and it turns out she just bought as much life insurance, whole life insurance, that she could afford in premiums. So I'm a Southern lady. But this is what I think about that. Okay. So let's move to the next form of financial advice. So now we have fee-based advisors. And this is a real interesting one. This is a person that literally in the same room can say, I am a committed fiduciary to you, until I'm not anymore. Okay, so here's the way this works. So they can literally, on one hat, say, I am here for you. I am going to only make decisions with you and give you advice that is only in your best interest. But then at the moment that they need to make the sale, they can switch hats, and they are now technically not under that rule anymore to act in the client's best interest in order to sell. Now, you may be sitting here going, there is no way that that is legal. There is no way that that is what people are actually doing. Well, this is what they're doing. And it is amazing the credibility that these folks have when they can say, I am a certified financial planner. I have a CFP. So it's no wonder that we see a lot of these companies, especially that push out these annuities and whole life policies, having their brokers and agents get this designation, right? It makes a lot of sense, because then you are now an unbiased advisor to be able to prospect for people then to go buy that policy that you're selling. Now, if you don't believe me, let's go into a disclosure where you can see on the same page, in fact, paragraph after paragraph, check this out. Okay, your advisor, while providing financial planning services to you for a fee, owes you a fiduciary duty, which requires your advisor to act in your best interest and disclose to you all conflicts of interest. Next paragraph. Your advisor does not owe you a fiduciary duty when acting as an insurance agent, selling insurance products to you, or selling securities. So imagine this. So you're, thinking and explaining your independence that also happens to sell the very thing you're selling, and this is legal. Okay, so now let's move to the third way, major way, that people give advice. This is a registered investment advisor. The important thing you need to understand is these people do not sell anything. And the idea was, let's remove conflicts of interest with a new pricing model. So it makes a lot of sense. These folks, they take your assets and they aggregate them, and then they charge a fee on them. So they'll charge like a percentage of your assets. So we sometimes call that an AUM, assets under management, an AUM fee. Okay, let's imagine what this looks like. So a new person, just right out of the economy conference, is inspired to save, wants help, realizes the importance of being, conflict-free, and finds themselves in a fee-only fiduciary's office. And she looks at him and says, "Can you help me build wealth?" And he says, "Sure, but I'll need $500,000 from you." And she says, "I don't understand." And so it's important to understand why he needs $500,000. Well, he needs to make money. And so he's going to charge this little bitty fee. I mean, what a 1% fee. Okay, so 1% on $500,000, it's $5,000. I mean, so that's a good idea, right? Spend $5,000, get a plan in place. That's a great investment, except then the next year, it's going to be more, and it's going to be more, and then you get to $1 million in assets one day, and suddenly the fee is $10,000. We'll get back to the fees in a second, but you can see why this is actually quite a good business for the advisor. But let's go back to our young woman. She wants to build wealth, and we want to have an advisor to help her do that. But all the other ones are conflicted, but this one can't take her. So I don't know about any of y'all. I'm a distance runner. I'm training for my first marathon. And so, thanks. I keep bailing on them, but we'll see. One day I'll run it. Okay. So let's say you have this marathon coach, and you sign up with this person, and this is what they say. It's like, here's the plan. You go run your first marathon. I'll help you with the second one. Okay, folks, was it harder for you to save your first $100 or your second $100? We need help with our first $500,000 in assets, okay? We don't need help with the second one. Furthermore, those fees matter. On the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission's website, they actually have a handy-dandy little chart, so you can see the impact of fees on a $100,000 portfolio. Now, if you look at the difference between that 1%, which is a common AUM fee, and say 25 basis points, 0.25%, that you would find, say, in a retirement plan, all-in fee. So if you look at the difference on a 20-year basis, you will have $30,000 less money, apples to apples, on all of the return assumptions if you pay a 1% fee versus 0.25. Furthermore, there's another little issue. We cannot help enough people. Even if we reduced and had $100,000 as the investment minimum, this misses out on 77 million people out there who might want advice. So if you're like, I have $10 to my name, and you go searching for an advisor, you're going to end up with one of the product salespeople. The other issue here is that if you make a business where you are paid to invest, even if you are a certified financial planner, or you say, I do financial planning, you're going to probably focus and do the thing that you're getting paid to do. So let me give you an example of this. So I'm a student loan expert, and we do these programs at hospitals, and I met this woman who had a CFP, a very prominent CFP helping her in Little Rock. And so she found out that we do student loan advice at her hospital, and so she asked for help. So sure enough, she had hundreds of thousands of dollars and really no plan. So I looked at her experience there at the hospital and realized she was eligible for the public service loan forgiveness. Not just eligible, she had enough to get all of her loans forgiven. So 20 minutes of paperwork, 3 months later, her wealth goes up by several $100,000. Okay, was that not her job with the CFP? I mean, what were we going to do about those student loans? Oh, well, she doesn't really expect that, and he doesn't really offer it, even though he's promised comprehensive financial planning. Because here's the deal. His job is to beat the stock market, and I'm sure he's doing it. So let's look at this. Okay, so remember I used to be a stock analyst. Okay, so we would sell our opinions to actively managed mutual funds. And so these are people who work in these really nice offices. I've sat in many of those offices, and they are all beating the market, all of them, except for the 92% that don't. Okay, so a 15-year period of time, 92% of actively managed mutual funds failed to beat the market. Okay, so this is public information, but we don't really have any information on this local advisor in Little Rock, Arkansas. So this local advisor in Little Rock, Arkansas, I'm sure is beating the market because this person is buying a collection of these actively managed mutual funds. Oh, I should have mentioned a small detail. These are only the funds that survive. If you're really crappy, you're not even in this list. So this is actually a pretty generous statistic. Okay, so back to our Little Rock, Arkansas person who is buying a mixture of these mutual funds and his own decisions on a few dozen other stocks that are in that portfolio. Who could tell if you're outperforming? One of my favorite cartoons, diversification is important. The more investments you have, the longer it takes to figure out how much you've lost. So let's just sum it all up. What I saw doing my research and what is still there today is we have about 700,000 advisors out there. And folks, I don't know about you, but I don't see how they're actually fundamentally on our side, and I don't see fundamentally how they're doing the work that we're doing here in this room to help people build wealth. So if you remember the three different types, we've got the broker-dealers are the largest. That was the first type we talked about. The fee-based advisors, they're coming in for a close second, my favorite ones. And then the third, at just about 10% of the market, are those fee-only fiduciaries. So when I saw that, I thought this cannot be possible. This cannot be how people give advice. And so I left my job, because I actually had money. So I was like, I can live for a little while if this is not going to work. And everybody told me this wasn't going to work. Because I decided I would just do something radical and just give financial advice and just charge money for it. What an idea. So here's why it doesn't work. So this is according to the group. So first of all, people will not pay for it because they perceive that advice is free because everybody else is giving it for free. They were kind of right about that for a few years. And the second issue is that you just won't make enough money. So I'm here to tell you, 13 years later, 800 clients, 60,000 retirement plan, and financial wellness participants later, it does work, and we have an industry. It's called advice only. Oh, that's sad. That was my big moment. Thank you, universe. It's advice-only financial planning. Words matter. Don't call me an advisor. Don't call me an RIA. Don't call me a fee-only fiduciary. I don't even believe that the fiduciary word holds any merit right now. Call me an advice-only financial planner and call the dozens of companies that are popping up every year to do this model. Call them advice-only financial planners. And here's what we do. Everybody does some version of this. Set your financial goals. Create a financial plan. Get both members of a marriage or partnership engaged in the process. Fundamentals of budgeting in every engagement. Then take your savings and put it in the most tax-efficient vehicles you can, paying off high-interest debt. Automate all investing for simplicity, and then provide accountability so that people move through their plan. But so that's what we will do as advice-only financial planners, but this is what we want from you. We want you all to be educated on the difference in these things. It's amazing when we poll people and have better understanding of what people think this industry is. They don't understand the words, and in those words are conflicts of interest. Become an internal advocate at your retirement plan. A retirement plan is where most people are going to save. We want you helping to make them better. If you have a retirement plan and you want to make it better, you can start a retirement plan committee or join one already existing. And I'm going to give a step-by-step guide on how to suss out all the high fees, how to hold the different players accountable in a retirement plan, how to understand the jargon of retirement plans. I'll have that session later today. Finally, if you are passionately self-educated and you come home from work and you do this stuff all day long, why not do it for a living? There are ways for you to get into this industry without having to take a plunge. You can do it incrementally. So if you are interested in that, I have some ideas on how you could start doing that as well. Folks, change is here, and it's only going to grow. But let me tell you, there's so much money right now in this industry flowing into Congress to keep the status quo. Change is only going to come in this room. It's here. Let's remove conflicts of interest from financial advice. Thank you.